So anyway, this morning I want to talk about daring to be different. It's a subject that I talk to my young people about, and it's a subject that I hold very dear to my heart. And so I want to kind of talk about that, and I want to share some statistics with you about young people. And the reason why I'm so excited about Youth Sunday was because oftentimes we look at young people as, oh, they're our next generation. Or we look at them and be like, oh, you're our future leaders. But what we don't understand is that they're our now generation, and that they are our leaders now. And that just because they may be 14 or 15, and just because they may be a young person, that doesn't mean they don't have something to offer. They have a purpose. And I think oftentimes churches in general, and I'm not saying this church, but churches in general kind of shun young people. And so then they feel like, man, they just look at me like I'm just a troublemaker, or I'm just this and I'm this. But in all reality, they are a leader. In all reality, they are born with a purpose, and they can serve, and they are our now generation. And so that's why I was so excited about Youth Sunday, because they were able to do the things that, adults got to do, and the adults got to kind of take a break today, except for worship. We're not there yet. And so Jacob had to do that for us. But in Matthew 16, verse 13 through 15, it says, when Jesus came to the region of Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? They replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah or one of the prophets. But what about you? He asked. Who do you say I am? And Simon Peter asked, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. So this morning as you sit here, I'm asking you the same question that Jesus asked Peter. Who do you say he is? Who is Christ to you? And are you living for Christ? 1 Peter 2, 23 through 25. It's going to be up there in the NIV, but I want to read it in the Message. It says, this is the kind of life you have been invited into, the kind of life Christ lived. He suffered everything that came his way so that you would know that it could be done, and also know how to do it step by step. He never did one thing wrong, not once said anything amiss. They called him every name in the book, and he said nothing back. He suffered in silent, content to let God set things right. He used his servant body to come by our sins to the cross, so we could be sin free, to live the right way. His wounds became your healing. You were lost sheep with no idea who you were or where you were going. Now you're named, and you're kept for the good by the shepherd of your souls. And so I read that, and I thought about this time when I went to Bible college in England, and there was a true story, and I want to share that story with you because I want to break it down. And when I heard about the story when I was in England, I thought, man, that's just like a modern day illustration of the Bible, of the gospel message. And so here's what happened. In England, a lot of people drive by train. And so this lady was on the train with her two small kids, and it was approaching the stop where they were going to stop to get off. She was at her destination. And so what happens is the doors open, and she has a stroller, so she pushes the stroller out of the train, and when she turns around to get her two small children, the doors of the train were closing. Okay, so here we are. Picture yourself. The doors of the train are closing. However, the children are still on the train. So now mom is on one side and the children are on the other side. If there's any moms or dads in here, can you imagine if your two small children, they were 4 and 3, I think the ages were, they were really small, being on one side of the train and you on the other side. So immediately this woman just starts banging on the train door. She's desperate. She's banging. She's going crazy. She doesn't care what people think about her. She doesn't care about what people say about her. All she cares about is getting reunited with her two small children. And then what happens? The train begins to pull out. Can you imagine? Just imagine, just for a minute, the hysterical position that this woman was in. She is screaming. I saw it. I was there when it was happening. I saw it on the news. And she is just screaming hysterically, my kids, they're on the bus, or they're on the train, and the train is slowly slipping away. And the mom is banging on the door. So she grabs the stranger's phone because she doesn't have her mobile phone with her. So she grabs the stranger's phone. She doesn't even care who it is. She grabs it because she has to call her mother-in-law to tell her mother-in-law that what is happening. And so she grabs the phone. She makes the phone call. Then she goes to the train station to find out where the next train stop is. So she hops into a stranger's car, and gets to the next train station. And she arrives, and the train door opens, and she's reunited with her 2 small kids. Picture that for a minute. Like, man. And I thought about that story and I said, man, that's the modern illustration of the gospel. Well, what do you mean by that, Trista? Well, first, let me tell you, just as that door became a barrier between mom and those children, the sin in our life becomes a barrier between us and God. The sin in our life becomes a barrier between us and God. So what sin in your life has become a barrier between you and God today? And I'm not talking about the sins that we think about, like adultery, and although those are sins and they very well become a barrier between you and God. But what about the pride? What about gossip? What about rebellion? What about greed and jealousy or unforgiveness? Or the very things that we think of, sex and pornography and drugs and alcohol and, well, dare I say maybe even the music that we're listening to? Maybe even the music. See, as the door closes, that barrier of sin, our Father was devastated because there was a barrier that became between us and God. See, He's desperate for you this morning. He's desperate. He wants to make a connection with you this morning. I don't believe that this accident, that we're here by accident. I don't believe that anyone showed up here coincidentally. I don't believe that even where you are with your walk with God, that, oh, I already made a connection. I believe that God wants to make a connection with you this morning, that it's time for us to deviate from the ways of the world and be sold out for Christ. It is time for us to dare to be different for Him. Can I just talk about social media for a minute? Man, can I just say like what a downfall social media has become, because we act like we're this super religious person 1 minute on Facebook and be God the glory and God this and God that, and then the very next post we're saying the N-word and we're using cuss words and F this and F this, and then the very next post, God above everything. That to me doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me so much that there are days I just want to throw my phone out the window because I can't stand Facebook. Because we act a certain way. Guys, it's time to deviate from the ways of the world and be sold out for Christ. If you look around, for so long times, you hear, oh, Jesus is coming back. Oh, Jesus is coming back. And we kind of just brush it off. But do you realize, look at the things that are happening in the world today. Jesus is coming back. And He is coming for those who are sold out for Him. He doesn't want wishy-washy Christians. See, God is looking for those doors to be open and for you to be reunited with Him this morning. He was shut out because of sin. And God is looking at His children through a glass, through this barrier. And He's saying, He's like that woman banging on that door, desperate to get back into relationship with you this morning. What are you putting in your life? Because let me tell you this, what you put in is what you get out. If you put rubbish in, you're going to get rubbish out. If you put God in, then God's going to come out. You can't, I heard Brother Troy preach this once, you can't squeeze an apple and expect orange juice to come from it. What you put in is what you get out. So what are you putting in your life this morning? The second thing about that story is the response to the parent. See, think about this. What if that woman left her umbrella and the doors closed and her umbrella was on it? Do you think that she really would have been throwing a fit and banging, oh my gosh, that's my favorite umbrella, what am I going to do without that umbrella? No. She wouldn't be banging on the doors. She wouldn't be going to strangers asking to find out where this train is going. She would be like, okay, I'm just going to go to the store and buy another umbrella. See, 1 minute this mom are sliding. This mother had an immediate value system with her children. See, have you ever left something behind where you were kind of upset? Maybe you were kind of mad? See, God has a value system with you guys this morning. God thought you were so precious enough to do everything that He could to reach you. Do everything that He could. Give everything and try everything just to reach you. See, this lady burst into action to get reunited with her 2 small children. God went into action. He sent His one and only Son for you this morning. the best he had. Not the second best, not the third best. God sent the best that he had for you this morning. God didn't stay in heaven and say, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? No, he sent the best of heaven for you. See, the third thing I think of is the children are sliding away. So the train door has been closed, and the train is pulling out, and the children are sliding away. 1 minute, the mom are with her 2 children, probably singing and happy and excited. And the next thing you know, the train of the door is closed, and her most loved ones are slipping away. See, guys, it doesn't take long to slip away from God. See, in 1 Peter 2:25, it says, we like sheep have gone astray. We are drifting. We are sliding away from God. And sin is not just murder. Sin is not just adultery. Sin is just the mere fact that you are slipping away from God. Are you slipping away from God this morning? The fourth thing that I think about this story is that the woman did not care about humiliation. See, this mother was screaming and running, and she did not care about those that were around her. All she cared about was getting her 2 children back. She was banging on the door, bawling her eyes out, desperate. See, God was willing to send his one and only son. He was in shame. He was hung on the cross. He was beaten. He was naked. He was bruised. He was pierced for us. See, listen, my shame, my humiliation was hung upon him. Imagine a trash bag that is overflowing with loads of liquid type of stuff coming out. You just pull it out and it's like all this nasty stuff. And for me, I want to leave it for my husband. I'm like, I didn't see it. No, I didn't do it. You know? But imagine that trash bag is filled with your rubbish, your sewage. Your soul's rubbish is pinned on Jesus. My lust, my hatred, my anger, my sin, all hung and pierced on Jesus, hanging on the cross. Everything I ever did, everything I ever thought is hung on Jesus, who didn't deserve my sewage. He didn't deserve my rubbish. He didn't deserve my muck, but he took it. He hung on the cross for you and for me because he loves us that much. All that lady cared about was getting her children back. Jesus cried to his Father, my God, why have you forsaken me? And in that moment, all God cared about was us. Can you think about that for a minute? His son is crying out, my God, why have you forsaken me? And all Jesus could think about was you and me. And yet we come and play church games. Come and, we're good this day, but then the next we're going to be putting this on social media, or we're going to talk about the pastors behind our back. Come on, guys. He wanted you back. Jesus has made a way possible to be reunited with our Father. And the great thing about that story is the fifth thing is the great reunion. This morning you have the opportunity to be reunited, to take a chance. And don't let that train go to the next station before you get reunited with a Heavenly Father. See, God gave you his best. He gave you his son. Will you give God your best? Or will you just come in here on a Sunday morning and jump up and down just because everyone else is? Or will you come in here not really feeling like we want to worship when God gave his best for us? What sin is in your life that is not allowing you to get to the Father this morning? See, doing this requires you to dare to be different. How do you dare to be different? How do you dare to be different? Let me tell you something. You know, when someone passes away and you go to the cemetery and you look at the gravestone, you see the date that they were born and you see the date that they died. But do you know, people don't remember that. You know what they remember on the gravestone? The hyphen. What are you talking about, Trista? The hyphen? That's how you lived your life. They remember you by how you lived your life. They're gonna remember that I was born in 1985 and I died with 2000 and way too far from now, God. But they're gonna remember that hyphen. How did I live my life on this earth? See, daring to be different means you don't worry about what others think, but having the freedom to be yourself. It means to not worry about being called crazy. It means to not follow the crowd, but to lead the crowd, to have the crowd follow you. It means being yourself because you're the only one that can do yourself justice. It means that being irreplaceable. And in order to be irreplaceable, you must stand out. But we are a bunch of cowards and we do not want to stand out. Can I just say that? And I'm preaching to myself because there have been times when I have cowardly back because I didn't want to stand back. I didn't want to stand out for God. And God was like, if you're ashamed of me, then I'm ashamed of you, Trista. That was a wake-up call for me. See, being replaceable, in order to be replaceable, you must stand out. I shared a little bit of the times that I've spoken, but I share this one part with you. In high school, I did a lot of things. I was in the popular group. I hung out with the football players and the cheerleaders, and I dressed a certain way. I would make fun of you if you didn't have name clothing, name brand. I made fun of you. You were a target. I drank. I did all these things just to fit in. I didn't care about daring to be different. I didn't care about you living a legacy. All I cared about was fitting in. And what I didn't realize is that I was willing to compromise who I was to make others happy, yet I was dying inside. I shared this story with the youth on Friday about an opportunity that I missed to dare to be different. And I share it with you because it has impacted my life. In high school, there was a boy named Chris Jeffries, and he was in band, and I wasn't in the band class, but he was in band, and we knew that the band teacher, in order to be in class, by the bell rang, you had to have your instrument, you had to have it ready. You were ready to play. The conductor would be there, and he was ready. And so what we would do, my friends and I, we thought it was cool. We would sneak into the band room. We would find Chris Jeffries' saxophone and we would hide it. So that, go ahead, I know I was evil, but we would hide it. Because then we would think that it was hysterical because when the bell would ring, he would still be in the instrument room looking for his instrument. And then when he would come out, everyone would make fun of him like, ha ha ha, you again. And what we didn't just do it that. What we did then is that we started going to Chris and be like, my friends and I, Chris, you know you're stupid. Chris, you know you're never going to amount to anything. Chris, and this is what I said. I'm not proud of this. Chris, my friends and I, Chris, you know you like boys. You know you're gay. You know you're a homosexual. We would speak it over his life. He would, walk away and, nah. I get saved. I go to Bible college. I come back, and I go back to my hometown, and I go through the McDonald's, and I come up to the window, and guess who's at the window serving my food? Chris Jeffries. And I saw him and I said, oh God, please, Lord, don't let him recognize it. I know I changed, Lord. I don't look like that no more. God, please don't let him see what I look like, God. And he didn't. And as I was about to pull off, God said, you need to go and apologize. And I said, God, really? Really, God? Like this was years ago. I need to go apologize. And he said, yeah, you need to go. And so I said, well, God, I already went through the drive-thru. I can't go back. And he said, get out of your car and go in. So I went into the car, went into McDonald's, and he said, oh, is there something wrong with your food, ma'am? And I said, Chris, you don't know who I am, do you? And he said, no. I said, I'm Trista from high school. I immediately saw his face just go completely white. And he was like, it's you. And I said, Chris, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. And then he told me something. He said, well, you know what? Those words that you were speaking to me, you didn't realize that I was actually struggling with homosexuality. And every time you spoke it, I just began to believe it. And now I'm in a relationship with a man. And that was when I woke up and I realized, man, I didn't dare to be different. I didn't. My words, you guys don't understand how much your words have so much power. And no matter how many times I could apologize to Chris, I'm sorry. He was like, no, you just brought freedom to my life. He just has a warped mindset. I said, no, Chris has not freedom. And every time I go back to Pennsylvania, he still works there. And I say hi to him. And I share that because that was an opportunity that I missed about what if I would have chosen to dare to be different. What if I would have chosen to dare to be different? I look in the Bible and there's failures and there's successes in the Bible. You look at Noah in his life and he walked with God and he did everything according to God and he actually walked alone for 120 years. And there was that period, you guys all know the story, when he was told to build the ark and the people hadn't even seen the rain yet. When he was mocked and he was ridiculed and made fun of, but he chose to dare to be different for God. Then you look at Aaron and how he made a golden calf to to be worshipped and how he failed and he disappointed God. Then you look at Peter and you look at his life. Here's a disciple who walked with God and walked with Jesus every day of his life, yet at the time came, he denied Jesus 3 times. Then you look at Paul. Because of him choosing to dare to be different, we have almost half of the New Testament and outstanding examples to follow about daring to be different. We have Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego because they refused to bow down, because they refused to not pray to false gods. They were thrown into the fiery furnace, yet they were not burned. Then we have Daniel, who chose to dare to be different, and he was thrown into the lion's den, yet he was untouched. You see, these folks, they dare to be different. They had courage and they had conviction. See, it's easy to stand with a crowd, but it takes courage to stand alone. It takes courage to stand alone. See, you have to decide ahead of time what your answer is going to be, because I guarantee you that when the time comes, if you don't know what your answer is, you're going to fall. You have to know what your answer is going to be. When you're called to compromise your morals, when you're called to compromise your purity, when you're called to compromise your convictions, you have to count it an honor to stand alone with Christ. When you're pressed to do things, young people, like smoke and drink or do drugs, you have to count it an honor to stand alone. And when you're ridiculed for being a Christian, you have to count it an honor to stand with Christ. Do you want to be the most popular and accepted? Or do you want to be right with God? Because I guarantee you this, being right with God is not the most popular thing to do. Look at our world. Look at our president's candidates. Look at what is happening. Look at it. See, these men that we talk about, these examples, they counted the cost daily of what it was going to be a Christian. They were willing to take up their cross daily, just not when it was convenient to them. Guys, it is not about coming here every Sunday and checking off church. It is not about saying, I did my good deed this week by coming to church. It is about being the church. I am so sick and tired of seeing people complain about this and complain about, pastor doesn't do this. And I'm not just saying about TOR. I've been to several churches preaching, and this is generalization. Well, this pastor doesn't do this, and this pastor takes too long, and why is he letting this, and why is worship like this, and all of this, guys. It is stop playing church and let's be the church. Do you understand something? Look around. Do you see new people? Do you see? We should be bringing people in from the streets to hear the gospel. We shouldn't be having to preach the gospel message to you every week. You should be bringing people in. They need to hear. They're the ones that are dying and going to hell, and we keep coming in hearing the same message and the same message and the same message because we got to get our feel good for the week. It is not about getting our feel good, guys. Listen, I'm just getting started. They didn't choose when they would and when they not. They were radical for Jesus. We have to decide to take up our cross daily. Guys, we can no longer be living a lukewarm life. You know what Revelation says? That if either choose to be hot or choose to be cold. Because if you're lukewarm, I will spew you out of the mouth. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be spewed out of the mouth of God because I'm lukewarm. Because I want to be accepted. Because on Monday and Tuesday, Monday, because there's nothing here at church. So Monday, I'm going to live like the world. And then Tuesday, if I'm a guy, I'm going to come to the Bible study and I'm going to come to the altar and ask God for forgiveness. And then Wednesday, I really don't want to go to Revelation Bible study, so I'm going to live in the world. And then there's nothing on Thursday, and then there's nothing on Friday and Saturday, and then Sunday we're up here and we're praising God, but we're not living like that the day before. This is not a place that you guys need to take this place serious. This altar is to be taken serious. It's not a place where you come and you get, oh, Jesus, I'm sorry. And then you go and you walk away and you're like, oh, thank you, Jesus. God is not what Jesus is. Guys, you have to decide. Stop living this lukewarm Christianity. That is why we are not getting people coming to the church. You know why? Because they're looking at your life and they're saying, if that's what it is to be a Christian, I want nothing to do with it. People should be able to know that you're a Christian without even opening up your mouth. The biggest message you will ever be able to preach is a message through your actions, not your words. What are your actions showing? See, guys, they were not ashamed of Christ. We live in a society that wants us to conform, but we are called by Christ to not conform, but to be transformed, is what Romans 12:1 says. Guys, they live, there's a mosquito. They live for an audience of one. I don't like those things. They live for an audience of one. Are you living for an audience of one? Or are you living for the audience of Snapchat? Are you living for the audience of Facebook? Are you living for the audience of Instagram? Are you living for the audience of one? Come on, where are you living? When you think of someone in the Bible who left in a remarkable legacy, someone who dared to be different, you can't help but have Jesus on your list. See, Jesus went to the cross alone. He dared to be different. I often ask myself how crazy intense it was to endure what Jesus did. You know, you read in the Bible and Jesus on the cross and he's hanging there and they're mocking him. If you really are the Son of Man, come down. I asked myself, I was like, man, do you think that, Jesus could have, he was the Son of God. He could have done anything. He could have came off the cross. He could have shut them up right then and there. But had he had done that, he would have not fulfilled the will of God. The will of God was to die on the cross for us. So he endured being ridiculed. He endured being mocked. He endured being made fun of. And yet we come to church or we go to our workplace and we don't dare share about Jesus because, well, they might make fun of me. Grow a backbone. It's going to get a backbone, guys. See, we are living in a time where we have to dare to be different. How thankful are you and I for Jesus daring to be different? See, we have teenagers living in a time that desperately needs us to live a lifestyle of daring to be different. We often wonder, man, what happened to our generation? Why is this generation acting out like this? Did you ever stop and think that maybe we didn't give them a good example? Maybe we didn't give them a best example. Because we as adults, we get our feelings hurt so we don't come to church for a couple weeks. Oh, pastor didn't say hi to me this morning. I ain't going to church. Pastor done sang the wrong, Jacob done sang the wrong song. He sang off the key. I ain't going back to that church. Really? And I'm not saying, sorry, Jacob. I don't know a thing about music, so you could be singing off the key and I will never know. I don't know. But listen, we live in that time where we are so wishy-washy and we're like, oh, I have a headache. I don't feel like going to church. And then we wonder why our young people don't want to go to youth group or our young people don't want to go to church. Well, they saw your mom had a headache, so I'm going to have a headache too and I'm not going to go to church. Come on now. Do you guys realize that 83% of teenagers in this country believe that moral truth depends only on circumstances? 88% of kids raised in a Christian home do not continue to follow the Lord after they graduate high school. And then we have people, well, my kid doesn't want to go to youth group. If your kid's not 18, you make them. If your kid's not 18, you make them. Last time I checked, you were the parent, they were the kid. Come on now. We have a generation and 88% of them are raised in Christian homes, but then when they get to college, they completely abandon their faith. You know, I've traveled a lot and I've done youth conferences, and I tell you this because throughout my traveling, I've had lots of young people send me emails, and I want to read a couple of them to you because I want you to understand where this generation is. Listen to this. I need prayer. I'm really struggling a lot right now. Since I was about 6, my dad was verbally abusing me and on occasion physically. When I was 12, my great-grandfather started molesting me. And then 17 days ago, this hurts me the most. I was raped when I was leaving work. I feel so dirty and used and abused and ashamed. I have so much hatred in my heart. I hate my life. I want to kill myself to get away from this pain. See, guys, that's the generation. There's a story of a man that I know. He was leaving church with his wife and his 2 kids, and he was leaving church, and as he was pulling out, he witnessed a head-on collision. And so immediately he jumps out of his car, he puts it into park, he immediately jumps out, he leaves his wife, he leaves his 2 kids behind, and he runs to the car. As he's running to the car bursts into flames. He doesn't stop. He realizes that there's people in that car that is trapped, and so he's willing to risk his life for a complete stranger. He gets up to the car. There was 2 teenagers, a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old. He pulls them out, and because of his heroic efforts, he saved their lives. When media got a hold of this, they started to find out, and a reporter asked him, "Sir, why would you be willing to risk your life for a complete stranger? Why would you be willing to leave your wife and your family behind to go and rescue somebody that you could have died, they could have died, you don't even know them?" And he said, "Listen, the car was on fire. What else was I supposed to do? Someone was trapped. Listen, can I tell you something? Our generation is in that car. And the car is on fire. Young people, your friends are in that car. And it is up to you to run and get them out. You have a gift. Young people, you have the answer if you have Jesus in your heart, and yet you don't want to go to school telling them about the very answer to get them out of the burning car because you're afraid. Your coworkers are burning up in that car, and you don't want to tell them about Jesus because, well, what if they find out I'm a Christian and they start mocking me, they start making fun of me. Guys, the car is on fire and our generation is in there. We have a generation that girls don't know if they're girls or if they're boys. We don't know if boys are girls or girls. We have a generation where, they want to go and the guys want to go use the girls' restroom at Target, and we have homosexuality on a rampant, and we have, sin and drugs and suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death in young people. The enemy is snatching them straight like this. The car is on fire, and we're coming to church and we're playing church. And there's a generation that needs rescuing, but Pastor didn't say hi to me, so my feelings are hurt. Come on, guys. Listen to this. This is going to blow you guys away. 61% of all television programming contains violence. 25% of all music videos depicted are carrying weapons. Teenagers view an estimated 10,000 acts of violence per month. Music lyrics we listen to are anything but edifying to God. We have men that are singing about women calling them the B word and a hoe, and then they have no self-respect. And then we have women that are struggling with their image because all they think is that they're the B word or they're a hoe because, well, that's what that song says. We have men that don't know how to respect a woman because they've been hearing that a women are a B and a women are a hoe, so they're going to treat that woman like that. Come on, listen, there's over 300,000 pornography websites for teenagers to explore free. Young people take in more than listen, this is crazy. Young people take in more than 18,000 hours of television by the time they graduate. Listen, that is over 5,000 more hours than 12 years of classes combined. Listen to this story. For the past couple of years, people in my school have been telling me to kill myself. It has caused me to fail my classes. Recently, my mother told me I'm nothing and that I'm worthless. It slipped out while we were having an argument, but she still said it. I will always remember the time that she called me fat. I'm now bulimic and a self-mutilator. There are days I can't go without cutting myself more than 30 times. I used to be a Christian. I still consider myself one. I'm just no longer sure if I'm going to heaven or hell. Trista, I'm not asking for prayer. Basically, I'm not even worth that much. I just thought I could talk to you. Listening to these stories, I have to ask you a question. Did you join a club called Christianity? Or did you become a soldier for Christ? Did you join the army of God? Because let me tell you something. If you're joined a club called Christianity, this is what a club member does. They pursue a common interest. They consume some of their free time. They gather acquaintances, and they find courage unnecessary. But if you join the army of God and you're a soldier, this is what happens. You pursue a common mission. You're dedicated your whole life. You gather fellow warriors, and you seize the day to make the battle count, and you find courage indispensable. A club member will never make a difference or never leave a legacy to be remembered because they didn't dare to be different. This morning, are you a club member or are you a soldier? Listen to this. Sometimes I want to commit suicide. I haven't told my parents yet. I tried to commit suicide 3 days ago. Can you help me? This little girl was 8 years old. My mom is an alcoholic. She's a mean drunk, so dad never comes home. And people are starting to not believe that I fell or walked into a wall when I come in with another black eye. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to betray my mom by telling someone because the last time she broke my cheekbone, but it was an accident. She trusts me. I don't want to hurt her. What should I do? See, it's time for us to be sold out for Christ. We have to stop playing these church games. Listen, guys, when I got saved on May 11th, 2001, that was the day that I decided that I was going to make my life count for something. I did things that made my friends think that I was crazy. I did things that I was talked about. Can I tell you something? I still am. I find out. Talk about me. I find out. I don't care. Doesn't do me nothing. Actually, it makes me feel good to be talked about. I was mocked. Guess what? I still am. It doesn't change. But Jesus has done so much for me to sit up and not say his name. It's like a fire shut up in my bones that I'm not able to contain it. See, what about you? Are you living a lifestyle that's daring to be different? Or are you just letting life pass you by? When was the last time you shared your faith with somebody? When's the last time you invited someone to church and they came? When's the last time? Now listen to my heart. I'm not saying I love encounters. I love encounters. I tell you my story. But why do we get so excited for encounters, but then the rest of the time we're not excited? We're not searching for princesses and champions to come on a Sunday morning. They don't need the encounter to get saved. They need God. We're going to be searching and saying, oh, we're going to bring 3 princesses and 5 princesses. Why can't we bring 3 or 5 people on a Sunday morning to a church? Because God can save them there too. If we don't, come on, guys. When was the last time that you shared your faith? A little girl was selling lemonade in California, and the health department came by and shut her down for no reason. But she immediately knew that what the health department did was wrong, and so she said, I'm going to stand up. I'm going to stand up for my rights. So she went to her mom, and her mom knew the law, and so they were not willing to back down. Eventually, the judge ruled in favor, and she reopened. The community got a hold of what was happening and realized that this little girl was willing to stand up and say, you know what happened was unfair, and I'm not willing to sit back and be quiet about it. So the first day she reopened, she made $20,000 because of the people of her community rallied around her and supported her for not giving up. Now don't go out and sell lemonade, because I'm not telling you all going to make $20,000. And if you do, I need a percentage of it. I gave you the idea. But listen, she was not willing to back down. Do you guys have that type of faith this morning that you're going to dare to be different, to make an internal impact on the kingdom of God? Or are you just playing church games? In front of Jesus, will you hear my well done, my good and faithful servant? Or will you hear, whew, you barely made it through? See, there are people on the other side of your obedience. They're waiting for you to be obedient. They are waiting for you to be obedient. I didn't become a Christian until my junior year in high school. And when I went to this new school, there was Ashley Walker in my college level English. And she came up to me and she said, I am Ashley. I said, I'm Tristan. She said, hey, tell me about yourself. And I started to tell her. And she said, well, I do worship at my church, and my dad's a pastor. And I said, nope, don't want to be your friend. You're a pastor's kid. No, stay away from me. Don't want. And so I made it a mission to stay away from her until my teacher decides that, for the entire year, we're going to put you in partners. And so I know who not to pick. You know what he did? I'm going to pick your partner. You know who God put me with the entire year? Ashley Walker. Every third period, I had to see that girl. And every third period, she would tell me about Jesus. And every third period, I would tell her how much I didn't need Jesus. And every third period, I told her she would invite me to church. And I said, Ashley, don't invite me to church. Finally, she invited me. She consistently asked me every single week. And every single week, I told her the same thing. And she started wanting to sit with me at lunch. And I said, you're crazy. Why can't you just leave me alone? It was so frustrating at one point, but she didn't stop because I was on the other side of her obedience. And when I finally said yes, and I went to a youth conference, I gave my life to God. It made it all worth it. And she tells me now, she's like, Trista, girl, there were days I wanted to give up on you. There were days I was in my prayer closet saying, God, send someone else her way, because I made her a life, a living, you know what. I didn't want nothing to do with God, and I was going to make my point known. But guess what? I'm thankful that she never stopped, because without her, I guarantee you I would be dead this morning. I was on the other line of her obedience, and there were people on the other side of your obedience, and you are sitting here not willing to do anything. Do you have that type of faith to dare to be different? Martin Luther King Jr. writes in his book, one night he was at home in his kitchen. He received a threatening phone call saying for him to stop preaching what he was preaching and stop saying what he was saying, or they would kill his wife and his family. He said he was shaken in his kitchen because he loved his family so much, yet he loved God even more. And in those moments, God spoke to him and said, Martin, you are never alone. You see, that day in that kitchen, he had to make a decision. If he was willing to stop what he was preaching and stop what he was going to do and conform to what that threatening phone call wanted him to do, or if he was going to choose to dare to be different and risk of his family being executed and killed. And look at how history has played out because of his determination and because of his relentlessness. He dared to be different. He was willing to see his wife and children possibly be killed because of what he stood up for. Yet he loved God that much more. See, God says to Israel, you know, I want to speak directly to you, but you're afraid of the fire. See, we cannot be afraid of the fire, guys. We have to have a life that is daring to be different. We are afraid of the fire. The fire is there to refine us and define us, and yet we are afraid of it because it might hurt a little bit. You know what? I have got to a place in my life that God search me and mold me and make me pliable in your hands. God, refine me and define me. I don't care how much it hurts, God, because I want to know you and I want to be used by you. And God, I don't care. God, I'm just that much. I'm not afraid. Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego were not afraid of the fire. It's time for us to get a backbone and stand up for Christ. Come on. Question. The day that you gave your life to God, the day that you said, God, come in my life. God, I give everything to you. Was that a day that you got fire insurance? Or was that the day that you truly died to yourself, willing to live for him and dare to be different? Because if that was a day that you got fire insurance so that you would have peace, that you would not face what was waiting for you, that is the wrong reason why you gave your life to God. Or did you truly give your life to God because you're willing to be different for him? Jesus did not live for himself. He lived for the benefit of others. At the end of our lives, there's only going to be one thing that lives beyond you. And that's what you did for Jesus. It's that hyphen. How did you live your life? How are you going to be remembered? Let's live our lives for the only thing that hundreds of years from now, it will still matter. The legacy you want to leave. What is it? Maybe some of you are in this room and you're going after God. You're saying, you know, Trista, I'm going after God. Yeah, but maybe you've been blown off course. Life is tough and you face storms. Maybe you've been blown off the course a little bit. There's this bird in Scotland. They tagged this bird who was going to be making a journey from Scotland to Africa, and they tagged it because the researchers wanted to be able to follow the bird, the journey, to be able to see what it endured and all that kind of stuff. And during the progression, the bird experienced a storm, and it was blown off the course that they originally had set it to. See, people have been watching this bird, and they said, man, I don't expect this bird to live. And there's absolutely nothing that we can do. They could see where it was at on the monitor, but there was absolutely nothing they could do. You see, the shepherd knows where you are this morning. And unlike those folks that are watching the bird that are helpless, our God is going to help you. Is this morning the day you choose to be sold out for Christ? Removing the barriers that keep you from fully surrendering. Guys, you don't have to come up here and God, I want to lay this down. So many of us, we come up and we want to lay this down, and then when we get up, we cry, we have our little tears, we wipe our eyes with our tissue, and when we turn around, we go back to our seat. But what we do is we pick the very thing that we laid up and we take it back with us. Come on, guys. It's meant to be down here. It is meant, God, Christ died for you so that you didn't have to carry it. Christ died for you so that you could be in freedom. That is what he did. See, is this morning the day that you choose to be sold out for Christ? Is this the morning that we quit playing church games and start being the church? Because we should be so far beyond this. So far beyond this. When I've been to India, man, I didn't have to talk about church games. Man, these women were praying and singing for God for 3-4 hours. They came up and my baby is going to die and there's nothing the doctor can do, but you have the answer. You have Jesus, and you would lay hands. I've seen the blind eyes open. I've seen an arm grow back, and I have seen it, but I don't see it here because we don't have the faith, because we're sitting here playing church games. And we're sitting here wondering why people are dying and going to hell. It's because we're not stepping up to the plate and doing the very thing that God has called us to do. Abortion is on the rampage because we've been silent. Homosexuality is like crazy because we have been silent. We're afraid to open our mouth. We're afraid to offend somebody. Guys, if you're offended, it's your choice to be offended. It is your choice. If I offend you, you made the decision to allow me to offend you. It's a choice you have to deal with. Don't come to me saying, you offended me. I don't care. I don't care. I remember I put something on Facebook one day, because I never had done this before. I put something on Facebook one day, and I was mad. I was in my feelings, and that doesn't happen often. That happens often. I just don't show it. My husband sees it, but no one else. And I put something on Facebook, and I'm so thankful that Pastor Miriam called me. Trista, what did you put on Facebook? I said, I want it on Facebook. Leave me alone. She said, Trista, come on. And I didn't like it at first. And I was like, oh, really? It's my Facebook. But I got off the phone with her. 2 minutes later, God said, what were you doing? I called Pastor Marion back. I said, Pastor Marion, I'm so sorry. And I took it off Facebook and I said, thank you. Thank you for being bold enough to come to me. Thank you for loving me enough to call me out. Thank you. Guys, we are sitting here and we're seeing our brothers and sisters doing things and we're being quiet because we don't want to offend somebody. Come on, guys. It's time to be the church. It is not time to play church games. I don't know why God keeps telling me that. I was up to 5:30 or 5 o'clock this morning praying, and that's the thing that God kept telling me. Stop. It's time to stop playing church games. People are dying and going to hell, and we are here sitting on these nice chairs on a Sunday morning, and we're like, oh, la, la, God is so good. But then when we face a trial or we face something, then God isn't good, because why would God let me have that? I have come to a place in my life that I don't want to know the answers. I just want to know God. Is this morning the day that we choose to no longer be a bench warmer in this church? Can I speak something in truth? If you're not serving, then you need to get up and serve somewhere. There are so many places in this church where you can serve. We have people that are serving in 2, 3, 4 departments because we have people that will not step up. We have people in the kids' church that are serving and don't even get to come in here on a Sunday because they're out there every single week. We can't even get people to usher because, oh, I don't know. You're not missing a service. You're in here. I mean, come on. We have Alyssa up there and Mary up there every single week almost, because no one else will step up and do media or sound. Troy and Rachel would like, Troy and Jason would like a break. But they got it. They got it. I can just sit here and be comfortable. Come on now. That's playing church games. We aren't called to be comfortable. We are not called to be comfortable. Let me tell you something right now. If you are comfortable in your walk with God, then you are not where you need to be. You are not where you need to be. See, this morning, don't let the train go to the next station. See, guys, there are 7 days in a week, and someday is not one of them. Someday is not one of them. I end this with this message. I end this with this story right here. First, I want to say a mistake repeated more than once is a decision. You're coming up here, God, I made a mistake. I turned that pornography on. You go back, you ask for forgiveness. Next week, you come and do it again. But God, it's a mistake. More than once, it's a decision. Brothers, if you're struggling, get a brother. Get accountability. Women, if you're struggling, get accountability. I have an accountability partner that knows the areas that I struggle, and they can call me at any time during the week and ask me, Trista, what are you doing? And if I'm making a mess out of my life, they ain't afraid to slap me around a couple times to get me life back. But I end with this story. Don't let the train go to the next station. I had a friend that I so desperately wanted her to know Jesus. I got saved and became radical for the Lord, and I didn't care what people thought or said about me. And her name was Nikki. And I remember saying, come on, Nikki, come to church. Come to church with me, Nikki. Come on, come to youth group. I felt like Ashley was to me. That's how I was with Nikki. And she said, Kristen, no, I don't want to go. And I kept asking her, and I kept asking her. And finally, one day she said, Trista, I promise you I'm going to go next week. I want to go to one last party. I want to go to one last party. One last party. I want to have fun one last time. 2:00 in the morning, I got a phone call. She had been driving with her boyfriend, and he was strung out on heroin. And he flipped the car. Nikki's body was thrown from the car. Her boyfriend Eric had no idea he was in an accident. The cops found him singing on top of a gravesite, singing in the cemetery, while Nikki's body was laying in a ditch. Now one more time, one more party. She let the train go to the next station, and she never got to get on. Nikki died. I remember saying, God, why did you let Nikki die? I had been telling her about Jesus. She said she was going to go next week, God. Guys, if you're here and you're saying, I'm not ready to give my life to God. I'm not ready to put the sin down. I'm not ready to quit playing church games. Guys, don't let the train go to the next station. You're not promised tomorrow. You're not even promised to walk out of here and go home safely. So I want to challenge you guys this morning. I want you guys with every eye bow.